Norfolk Island had been peaceful and murder-free for decades, until the brutally murdered body of a woman appeared. Who could be the killer hiding among them? It didn't take long for the people of Norfolk, the once peaceful island, to be gripped by fear when Janelle Patton's stabbed and bloody body was found, wrapped in a plastic sheet, and left in Cockpit Waterfall Reserve. The terrifying shadows of this brutal murder now hang over the island. Could more killings follow? Was it a personal vendetta? In today's video, we dive deep into the chilling case of Janelle Patton's murder. Warning, this one is not for the faint-hearted. Janelle Patton was born in 1972 in Sydney, Australia, and had what could be described as a perfect childhood. Her parents, Ron and Carol, were loving, and she adored them in return. As a young girl, Janelle was caring, kind, and talented. However, things began to change as she entered adulthood. She worked at several banks and found herself in difficult relationships, but love continued to elude her. Struggling with stress, Janelle turned to alcohol for comfort. In 1999, at the age of 27, she made a life-altering decision to leave behind the bustling city and seek peace. She moved to Norfolk Island, hoping to find happiness. Little did she know, a far darker fate awaited her there. Norfolk Island, nestled between Australia and New Zealand, was once a haven free from crime. Residents rarely locked their doors and trusted one another, with no murder reported for over a century. It wasn't unreasonable for Janelle to believe she could find peace and happiness there. She began working as a hotel maid, though her parents were unhappy with her decision to move. It took until 2002 for Janelle to finally see her parents again after years apart. March 30th, 2002 was the day Janelle had eagerly awaited, a reunion with her parents. After spending the day together, her parents returned to their accommodation, excited to see her again the next afternoon. However, the next day, they heard nothing from her. When she didn't answer their calls, and there was no word from her as the day wore on, her worried parents reported Janelle missing to the police. Around 6:30 that evening, two tourists made a horrifying discovery at Cockpit Waterfall Reserve, a body wrapped in a black plastic sheet. They immediately contacted the police, and investigations began. This is how Janelle's parents learned the devastating truth that no parent should ever have to face. Their daughter had been brutally murdered. Janelle's body was found with her shorts and underwear pulled down, leading investigators to initially suspect a sexual motive. The brutality of her murder was chilling. Janelle had been stabbed 24 times. One of the wounds was across her palm, indicating she had tried to defend herself by grabbing the weapon. Another deep stab pierced her chest, puncturing her lung. Her skull was fractured, and her pelvis and ankle were broken. Bruises covered her body, signs of a desperate fight for her life. In the end, her body was left in the reserve, covered in plastic sheets and wet from the rain, until the tourists came upon the tragic scene. The entire island was gripped with fear following the news of Janelle's brutal murder. As Janelle's parents offered their full support to the investigation, detectives began piecing together the events of that tragic day, March 31st, 2002. Janelle started her day by working from 7 to 11 a.m. She was later spotted on CCTV at a local supermarket. Afterward, she visited Ruth, her landlady, before Ruth's husband drove her back to her cottage. Not long after, Janelle was seen heading out again, this time dressed in her sports kit, ready for a run. There were no immediate leads, and most of the fingerprints on the plastic sheeting had been washed away by the rain. With around 2,500 residents on the island at the time, investigators began by conducting surveys and questioning everyone in the community. There were indeed suspects from Janelle's close circle and those she had interacted with, resulting in a list of 16 individuals. However, none of their fingerprints matched the evidence. There were also records of the man being taken into custody for burglary, during which his fingerprints were collected. Later, investigators matched these fingerprints with those found in Janelle's case, linking him to the crime. That's when they came across Glenn McNeil, Glenn had moved from Nelson, New Zealand to Norfolk Island with his girlfriend Alicia in 2000, and the two got married in 2002. Glenn McNeil's fingerprints taken during the investigation matched those found on the plastic sheet. However, by the time authorities sought him, Glenn had already left the country after divorcing his wife Alicia and moved in with his new girlfriend. Investigators needed more evidence to bring him back to the island. Investigators soon found a crucial lead: traces of green glass in Janelle's hair. This same green glass was discovered in McNeil's Honda, which he had left behind, and in his former home. Also, plastic sheets similar to the one Janelle was wrapped in were also found in his abandoned house. 4 years after Janelle's murder, Glenn McNeil was arrested in 2006 at his home in New Zealand. He confessed to what had happened that day. According to Glenn, he accidentally hit someone with his car while looking down to pick up a cigarette. At first, he thought it was an animal, but when he got out to check, he found Janelle lying motionless under the car. Panicking and unable to think clearly, he believed she was dead, so he placed her in the trunk and took her home. However, when he realized she was still alive and heard her moaning, he panicked again and stabbed her to death. He then wrapped her body in plastic and dumped it in the reserve. At least that's what he claimed. However, the court didn't believe him, as the evidence never matched his story. Despite the obvious involvement in the murder, many pieces of the puzzle remained missing. In a surprising turn of events, investigators discovered unknown female DNA under Janelle's fingernails and on her shorts. To this day, no female suspect has been identified. Investigators even questioned Glenn's ex-wife, but removed her from the suspect list. Glenn's story constantly shifted after being charged. Initially, he confessed to hitting Janelle with his car, but later he denied killing her. During the trial, he claimed he hadn't seen Janelle on the day of her murder and presented evidence to support this, stating his earlier confession of dumping her body was due to mental illness. His defense then took another turn. This time, his girlfriend, Shelley Hooper, provided a new version of events. She claimed Glenn had been forced to participate in the murder by a drug-dealing couple who killed Janelle and then coerced Glenn into dumping her body. Glenn added that he wore surgical gloves while moving the body and later buried them in his garden. However, when police searched for the gloves, nothing was found. Even if the couple had forced him to help, why didn't he go to the police afterward? This question only deepened the doubts surrounding his ever-changing story. Despite that puzzling evidence, Glenn was sentenced to 24 years in prison in 2007. He tried to plead his case, but his efforts were in vain, and he couldn't overturn his conviction. The case still has missing pieces, even with Glenn McNeil arrested as Janelle's murderer. The identity of the female DNA found under Janelle's fingernails and on her shorts remains unknown. Investigators have been unable to fill in the gaps regarding the sexual assaults, and Glenn has never admitted to those crimes either. Whose DNA was found under Janelle's fingernails? It remains a tangled thread that needs to be unraveled. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to our channel for more true crime videos. Until we meet again, stay safe.